There was a time when Hollywood wasn't just a place on a map, it was a dream factory, a beacon of hope, and a glittering promise of eternal stardom. The bright lights of Los Angeles pulled in thousands of hopefuls every year, each believing they had what it took to be immortalized on the silver screen. But behind the fame, the flashing cameras, and the perfectly rehearsed smiles was a darker truth, a truth that revealed that Hollywood was just as skilled at breaking people as it was at making them legends. Take Marilyn Monroe. Her name alone conjures images of beauty, glamour, and desire. She was the ultimate symbol of Hollywood in the 1950s, a star so bright she seemed untouchable. But Marilyn was never just a movie star, she was a vulnerable woman trapped in a system that cared little about her well-being. The studios turned her into a commodity, the media dissected her every move, and her personal struggles with mental health and loneliness were drowned out by the demands of fame. The world remembers her as an icon, but behind the smile was a life cut tragically short, a painful reminder that fame can be as much a curse as it is a blessing. And then there was Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, who became more than just a musician, he was a cultural revolution. Hollywood welcomed him with open arms, placing him in films that showcased his voice, his charm, and his electrifying presence. But the very industry that celebrated him also caged him. Elvis was pushed into movies he didn't want to make, scripts that undermined his artistry, and a lifestyle that left him isolated and trapped. By the end, the man who had once set the world on fire with his voice was struggling with addiction, his body failing him before his time. Hollywood played its part in building Elvis into a legend, but it also played its part in destroying him. Charlie Chaplin was another figure whose rise and fall is almost Shakespearean in its drama. Chaplin wasn't just a star, he was a pioneer, an innovator, a man who shaped the very language of cinema. With his little tramp character, he brought laughter to millions, and his genius made him one of the most powerful figures in early Hollywood. But power comes with enemies, and Chaplin's political views and personal scandals made him a target. At the height of his fame, he was labeled a communist sympathizer, his personal life was torn apart by the press, and he was exiled from the country that had once adored him. His fall was not because he lacked talent, but because Hollywood and America turned their back on him when his image no longer fit their expectations. Judy Garland's story is perhaps one of the most heartbreaking. She was just a child when Hollywood discovered her, and the studios molded her into the perfect star. At only 16, she captured the world's heart in The Wizard of Oz, singing a song that still resonates decades later. But behind the scenes, Judy's life was carefully controlled. She was placed on strict diets, given pills to stay awake, pills to fall asleep, and forced into a cycle of dependency that would haunt her forever. The little girl who dreamed of a land over the rainbow was stripped of her innocence by an industry that valued her image more than her humanity. Her voice was extraordinary, but the pressure of carrying Hollywood's weight broke her spirit, leading to a tragic end that shocked the world. James Dean was another icon who embodied Hollywood's promise and its cruelty. With only a handful of films, he became the face of youthful rebellion, a symbol of raw emotion and restless energy. But James Dean never had the chance to grow old, to expand his craft, or to enjoy the rewards of fame. His life was cut short in a car crash at just 24 years old. In death, Hollywood froze him in time, forever young, forever untouchable. But that's the tragedy, his potential was sacrificed on the altar of fame, leaving us to wonder what could have been if Hollywood's pressures and his reckless pursuit of life hadn't collided. The story of Whitney Houston adds a more modern layer to this narrative. She was a voice like no other, a woman who captivated audiences around the world. Hollywood and the music industry placed her on a pedestal, selling an image of perfection. But that image came at a cost. Whitney's struggles with addiction, her troubled relationships, and the suffocating expectations of fame dragged her down. The same cameras that once celebrated her now fed off her downfall. Her untimely death shocked the world, but it wasn't unexpected, it was the devastating end to a pattern Hollywood has repeated for generations. Even Michael Jackson, the king of pop, though not a Hollywood movie star in the traditional sense, was one of the most iconic figures in entertainment history. His life was a spectacle, his fame unparalleled. But that fame also came with scrutiny, accusations, and a loss of personal freedom. Michael Jackson became a prisoner of his own image, his every move analyzed, his humanity stripped away until he was more myth than man. His death was tragic, but like so many before him, it was also a warning about the dangers of fame unchecked. What makes these stories so haunting is not just the individual tragedies but the pattern that connects them. Hollywood is built on a paradox: it promises immortality but often delivers destruction. The stars who rise to the top do so at great cost. They give up their privacy, their freedom, and sometimes even their sanity. The same audiences who cheer for them are the same ones who consume the scandals, the downfalls, and the heartbreaking endings. It's a cycle as old as Hollywood itself: build them up, tear them down, and then immortalize them in tragedy. And yet, despite these stories, people still flock to Hollywood, still dream of the spotlight, still crave the validation of fame. That's the allure, it's irresistible. For every cautionary tale, there's the hope that maybe this time, it will be different. Maybe this time, fame won't destroy but will uplift. But history tells us otherwise. From Marilyn to Judy, from Elvis to Whitney, the price of stardom remains steep, and Hollywood continues to collect its dues. The rise and fall of these icons remind us that behind the dazzling facade of fame lies a world of sacrifice, pain, and loss. We remember their faces, their voices, their performances, and their moments of brilliance, but we must also remember the cost. Because Hollywood doesn't just create legends, it consumes them. As the credits roll on their stories, we're left with a bittersweet truth: the stars may fade, but the cautionary tales remain, echoing through the halls of Hollywood like ghosts reminding us of the true price of fame.